First contact and tension. The sleek, silver hull of the UES Horizon glided silently through the inky void of space, its sensors probing the darkness for any sign of the alien signal that had brought them to this distant corner of the galaxy. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the main view screen, a mix of excitement and apprehension coursing through her veins. "Any update, Lieutenant Reyes?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. The young communications officer shook his head, his fingers dancing across his console. "Nothing yet, Captain. The signal's still there, but we can't pinpoint its exact location." Chen nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. First contact with an alien civilization. But now that it was upon them, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were woefully unprepared. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. "Captain," shouted the tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka. "Massive energy signature detected. Something's coming out of FTL." Chen's eyes widened as she watched a colossal ship materialize before them, easily dwarfing the horizon. Its hull was a deep, iridescent purple, covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "By all that's holy," whispered Dr. Elias Mbeki, the ship's xenobiologist. "It's beautiful, and probably capable of turning us into space dust," muttered Chen. She straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. "Open a channel, Lieutenant Reyes. Let's hope they're in a talking mood." As Reyes worked to establish communication, Chen couldn't help but marvel at the alien vessel. Its design was like nothing they'd ever seen. Organic yet mechanical, a perfect fusion of form and function. Whatever species had built it was clearly far more advanced than humanity. "Channel open, Captain," Reyes announced, his voice tight with nervous energy. Chen cleared her throat and spoke clearly into the ship's comm system. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We come in peace and friendship, seeking to establish contact with new civilizations. Please respond." For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, without warning, a holographic image flickered to life in the center of the bridge. It showed a tall, slender being with iridescent skin and large, multifaceted eyes. When it spoke, its voice was a melodious trill that sent shivers down Chen's spine. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am High Emissary Zalfar of the Zarnian Empire. We have been observing your species for some time and have deemed you worthy of attention." Chen frowned at the pause before the word attention, but pressed on. "We're honored to make your acquaintance, High Emissary. We have so many questions about your people and your civilization. We hope this can be the beginning of a fruitful dialogue between our species." Zalfar's multifaceted eyes seemed to shimmer with an emotion Chen couldn't quite identify. "Indeed, you will have the opportunity to learn much about us in the coming cycles. For now, we extend an invitation for you to visit our capital world, Zarnia Prime. There we will discuss your species' place in the greater galactic community." Something about the way Zalfar phrased that last part set off alarm bells in Chen's mind, but she knew they couldn't pass up this opportunity. "We would be honored to accept your invitation, High Emissary. However, we'll need to consult with our government before making any formal commitments." Zalfar's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, we will await your response. But do not tarry, Captain Chen. The Zarnian Empire is not known for its patience." With that, the hologram disappeared, leaving the bridge crew of the Horizon in stunned silence. "Well," Dr. Mbeki said, breaking the tension, "that was interesting." Chen nodded, her mind already racing with the implications of this encounter. "Lieutenant Reyes, establish a secure channel to Earth Command. They need to know about this immediately." As Reyes worked to set up the communication link, Chen turned to her first officer, Commander Jack Harper. "What do you make of it, Jack?" Harper ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair, his blue eyes troubled. "I don't like it, Sarah. The way that Zalthar character talked about our place in the galaxy. It sounded more like they were planning to assign us a role rather than engage in equal dialogue. Chen nodded, glad her instincts hadn't led her astray. My thoughts exactly. But we can't afford to jump to conclusions. This could still be a simple misunderstanding due to cultural differences. Or it could be the prelude to an invasion. Tanaka chimed in, her hand hovering near her console's weapons controls. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Chen cautioned. For now, we play nice and gather as much information as we can. Earth needs to be prepared for any eventuality. Over the next few weeks, a flurry of diplomatic activity ensued. The United Earth government dispatched its best negotiators and xenolinguists to the horizon, which had been designated as the official point of contact with the Zarnians. Despite their best efforts, however, tensions continued to rise. The Zarnians seemed to view every human attempt at establishing equal footing as a sign of disrespect or aggression. They spoke of uplifting humanity and guiding them to their proper place in the galactic hierarchy, concepts that did not sit well with the fiercely independent human negotiators. Captain Chen watched with growing unease as the situation deteriorated. She had hoped that increased understanding would lead to better relations, but if anything, the opposite seemed to be happening. The more they learned about the Zarnian Empire, the more it became clear that their values were fundamentally incompatible with those of humanity. The Zarnians operated on a strict caste system, with entire species relegated to subservient roles within their empire. The concept of democracy was alien to them, viewed as a chaotic and inefficient way to govern. They saw humanity's emphasis on individual freedom and self-determination as a dangerous flaw that needed to be corrected. As the negotiations dragged on, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading towards a confrontation. The Zarnians grew increasingly frustrated with humanity's refusal to simply accept the role they had decided for them, while the human diplomats became more and more convinced that the Zarnians had no intention of treating them as equals. The breaking point came during a heated exchange between the lead human negotiator, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, and High Emissary Zalfar. "You must understand," Ambassador Zalfar said, his voice dripping with condescension, "that your species is young and inexperienced. It is our duty to guide you, to show you the proper way to exist within the galactic community." Rodriguez's eyes flashed with anger. "And you must understand, High Emissary, that humanity will never submit to the rule of another species. We have fought too long and too hard for our freedom to simply hand it over because you deem us inexperienced." Zalfar's multifaceted eyes seemed to darken. "You speak of freedom, yet you do not understand true order. The Zarnian Empire has brought peace and stability to countless worlds. We offer you the chance to be a part of something greater than yourselves. At the cost of our autonomy and our values," Rodriguez shot back. "That's not a price we're willing to pay." The air in the conference room crackled with tension as Zalfar rose to his full height, towering over the human delegation. "Then perhaps we have misjudged your species' readiness to join the galactic community. If you cannot see the wisdom in our offer, then more direct methods may be necessary." With that thinly veiled threat hanging in the air, Zalfar swept out of the room, leaving the human delegation in stunned silence. Captain Chen, who had been observing the negotiations, turned to Rodriguez. "I think we can safely say diplomacy has failed," she said grimly. Rodriguez nodded, her face a mask of determination. "We need to warn Earth. The Zarnians aren't looking for allies. They're looking for subjects, and I have a feeling they're not going to take no for an answer." As Chen rushed to the bridge to send an emergency transmission to Earth Command, she couldn't help but feel a sense of inevitability. Humanity had dreamed of making contact with alien life for so long, hoping to find friends among the stars. Instead, they had found an empire that saw them as little more than savages to be conquered and controlled. But if the Zarnians thought humanity would roll over and submit without a fight, they were in for a rude awakening. Humans had a long history of standing up to bullies and tyrants, even against overwhelming odds. And now, with the fate of their entire species hanging in the balance, Chen knew they would fight with everything they had. As she sent the warning to Earth, Chen's resolve hardened. The Zarnians were about to learn a harsh lesson. Humans don't negotiate their freedom. They fight for it, to the bitter end if necessary. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine the fate of humanity and shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. The ultimatum and preparation. The atmosphere in the United Earth Defense Council chamber was thick with tension as Admiral Hiroshi Yamamoto delivered his report. The holographic displays flickered with images of the massive Zarnian ships, their purple hulls gleaming ominously against the backdrop of space. "Ladies and gentlemen," Yamamoto said, his voice grave, "the situation is dire. The Zarnian Empire has issued an ultimatum. Earth has 30 solar days to submit to their rule or face total annihilation." A murmur of shock and anger rippled through the assembled leaders. General Maria Alvarez, head of the Global Defense Force, slammed her fist on the table. Annihilation. Who do these overgrown insects think they are? A species that's thousands of years more advanced than us, with a military might that dwarfs our own, replied Dr. Aisha Patel, the Council's chief scientist. Her dark eyes were filled with worry, but there was a spark of determination in them as well. "But that doesn't mean we're going to roll over and die." Council President Jae-hoon Kim nodded, his weathered face set in grim determination. "Dr. Patel is right. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before, and we've always found a way to survive. This time will be no different." He turned to Admiral Yamamoto. "What are our options?" Yamamoto's hologram flickered as he brought up a new set of displays. "Our conventional forces are no match for the Zarnian fleet. However, we do have a few advantages. First, the Zarnians seem to have underestimated our technological capabilities. They don't know about some of our more classified projects." He gestured, and a hologram of a sleek, deadly-looking ship appeared. "This is the XC-1 Excalibur. It's our first prototype ship equipped with a reverse-engineered version of the Zarnians' faster-than-light drive. We've been working on it in secret since our first encounter with their technology." Dr. Patel leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "The Excalibur isn't just fast. It's packed with experimental weapons systems that we believe can penetrate Zarnian shields. And that's not all." She tapped a few commands on her datapad, and a new image appeared. A swarm of what looked like mechanical insects. "These are our hive drones," Patel explained. "Hyper-intelligent vectored engagement units. They're AI-driven, capable of learning and adapting in real time to enemy tactics. In simulations, they've proven incredibly effective against superior forces." General Alvarez nodded approvingly. "Impressive. But will it be enough?" "It has to be," President Kim said firmly. "Because we all know surrender is not an option. Humanity will not bow to tyranny, no matter the cost." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. "I need unanimous agreement here. Are we prepared to fight, even if it means risking everything?" One by one, the council members nodded their assent. The decision was made. Earth would fight. As the meeting adjourned, the gears of war began to turn. All around the globe, hidden factories sprung to life, churning out weapons and ships that had existed only in theoretical designs mere months ago. The best minds on the planet worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of science and engineering to give humanity a fighting chance. In orbit, the Excalibur underwent its final tests. Captain Sarah Chen, having proven herself during the first contact mission, had been given command of humanity's most advanced warship. As she walked through its corridors, she marveled at the seamless blend of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien tech. "How are we looking, Dr. Amiki?" she asked as she entered the ship's lab. The xenobiologist had been reassigned to the Excalibur, his expertise deemed crucial for the coming conflict. Elias Mbeki looked up from his console, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, but burning with excitement. "It's incredible, Sarah. The more we study the Zarnian tech, the more we realize how much potential it has. They've barely scratched the surface of what their own systems can do." Chen raised an eyebrow. How so? They're stagnant, Mbiki explained. Their empire has been stable for so long that they've stopped innovating. But we're approaching their tech with fresh eyes, finding applications they never dreamed of. A slow smile spread across Chen's face. That could be the edge we need. Meanwhile, on Earth, cities were being transformed into fortresses. Underground bunkers deep enough to withstand orbital bombardment were constructed at a frantic pace. The global defense force mobilized on a scale not seen since the darkest days of the 21st century, when humanity had nearly destroyed itself. But this time was different. This time, all of humanity stood united against an external threat. Old rivalries and conflicts were set aside as nations pooled their resources and knowledge. It was a level of cooperation unprecedented in human history. As the days ticked by, tension mounted. The Zarnian fleet hung in high orbit, a constant reminder of the sword dangling over humanity's head. But instead of cowering in fear, the people of Earth worked with grim determination. If these aliens thought humans would go quietly into the night, they were sorely mistaken. In Geneva, at the headquarters of the United Earth Government, President Kim addressed the world. His speech was broadcast to every corner of the globe and to every human outpost in the solar system. My fellow humans, he began, his voice steady and resolute. We stand at the precipice of the greatest challenge our species has ever faced. An alien empire that spans the stars has demanded our submission, threatening our very existence if we refuse. He paused, his eyes scanning the camera, seeming to make eye contact with every person watching. But we will not submit. We will not surrender the freedoms and values that define us as human beings. We have always been a species that reaches for the stars, that dares to dream of a better tomorrow. And we will not let anyone, human or alien, take that from us. As Kim spoke, humans around the world listened with rapt attention. In the crowded streets of Mumbai, on the farms of Iowa, in the research stations of Antarctica, everyone held their breath, united in this moment of crisis. The road ahead will be difficult, Kim continued. We face an enemy with technology far beyond our own, with numbers that eclipse our entire population. But throughout our history, humanity has thrived in the face of adversity. It is in our darkest hours that we shine the brightest. In orbit, aboard the Excalibur, Captain Chen and her crew listened to the speech, their resolve hardening with each word. We have always been explorers, innovators, and fighters, Kim's voice rang out. And now we must be all of these things and more. We must be the guardians of our own destiny. The Zarnians think they know humanity, that they can predict our actions. But they have no idea what we're capable of when our backs are against the wall. The president's voice swelled with emotion. To the Zarnian Empire, I say this, you have made a grave mistake. You thought you could come to our home and demand our obedience. You thought you could threaten us into submission. But you have only awakened a sleeping giant. Humanity does not negotiate with tyrants. We do not bow to threats. We stand, we fight, and we win. As Kim's speech concluded, a roar of defiance and determination echoed around the world. In that moment, every human being, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, understood the gravity of what was to come. They knew the odds were stacked against them, that the fight ahead would be brutal and costly. But they also knew that they fought for something the Zarnians could never understand, the unquenchable human spirit, the burning desire for freedom that had driven their species from caves to the stars. In her quarters aboard the Excalibur, Captain Chen looked out at the earth below, blue and beautiful, and so terribly vulnerable. She thought of all the billions of lives depending on her and her crew, of the awesome responsibility they bore. We won't let you down, she whispered to the planet below. We'll show these Zarnians what happens when you back humans into a corner. As the deadline approached, humanity stood ready. Ships were fueled, weapons were primed, and every able-bodied person had a role to play. The greatest war in human history was about to begin, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. But in labs and workshops around the world, human ingenuity continued to spark. New ideas, desperate plans, and innovative solutions were being born even as the clock ticked down. For in the face of annihilation, humanity's greatest strength was emerging. The ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to never, ever give up. The Zarnians had no idea what they were in for. They thought they were facing a primitive species barely out of its cradle. Instead, they were about to confront the full fury of a humanity united, determined, and fighting for its very existence. The stage was set. The pieces were in place, and as the deadline loomed, Earth held its breath, ready to show the galaxy that humans don't just negotiate. They fight, they persevere, and against all odds they win. The first strike. The tension in the war room was palpable as the countdown timer ticked relentlessly toward zero. Admiral Yamamoto stood at the center of the holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by the swirling galaxy map before him. Around him, the best military minds Earth had to offer waited with bated breath. T-1 hour to the Zarnian deadline, a computerized voice announced, sending a shiver through the assembled officers. Captain Sarah Chen's hologram flickered to life beside the Admiral. "Excalibur is in position, sir. All systems are green." Yamamoto nodded grimly. "You know the plan, Captain. The fate of humanity rests on your shoulders. May the stars be with you." As Chen's hologram faded, the Admiral turned to face his staff. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 1 hour, we either submit to alien rule or face annihilation. But we have a third option." He smiled, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "We strike first." Across the solar system, humanity's forces lay in wait. The Excalibur, cloaked by experimental technology reverse-engineered from Zarnian sensors, hung silently in the shadow of Mars. Swarms of high drones, each no larger than a hummingbird, floated dormant in the asteroid belt. And deep within the heart of every major city on Earth, quantum entanglement communicators hummed softly, ready to coordinate humanity's desperate gambit. Aboard the Excalibur, Captain Chen paced the bridge, her heart racing, but her voice steady as she addressed her crew. "We've trained for this. We know our jobs. When that timer hits zero, we show these Zarnians what happens when you corner humanity." As the final minutes ticked away, a tense silence fell over Earth. In homes and bunkers, in military bases and civilian shelters, billions of humans waited, their eyes fixed on screens showing the looming Zarnian fleet. Then, with a silent flash, the timer hit zero. For a moment, nothing happened. The Zarnian ships hung motionless in orbit, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Then, without warning, they began to move, their massive forms aligning into an attack formation. But humanity struck first. "Now," Yamamoto's voice crackled through the quantum comms. "Operation Trojan Horse is go." In an instant, the solar system exploded into action. The Excalibur's engines flared to life, propelling the ship towards the Zarnian fleet at impossible speeds. But it wasn't aiming for the warships. Instead, it streaked towards the massive command vessel at the heart of the alien formation. "Excalibur's away," Chen reported, her voice tense but controlled. "Hive swarms activating." Now, across the asteroid belt, millions of tiny drones buzzed to life. They swarmed towards the Zarnian fleet, their diminutive size making them nearly invisible to the alien sensors. As they approached, they began to emit complex electromagnetic fields, designed to mimic the signatures of much larger ships. On the Zarnian command ship, alarms blared. High Commander Vexlor stared in disbelief at the tactical display. Where moments ago there had been empty space, now thousands of ships seemed to be appearing from nowhere. "Impossible," he hissed. "These primitives couldn't have hidden a fleet of this size." But as the Zarnian ships turned to face this phantom armada, the true attack began. The Excalibur, moving faster than any human ship had ever traveled, slammed into the Zarnian command vessel's shields. But instead of being destroyed, It passed through it as if the barriers weren't even there. Shield frequencies matched. Chen's voice was triumphant. "We're in." Inside the Zarnian ship, chaos erupted. The Excalibur had materialized inside their shields, its hull grinding against the alien vessels as it unleashed a payload of boarding pods. Earth's best soldiers, led by General Alvarez herself, poured into the Zarnian command ship. Meanwhile, the hive swarms reached the Zarnian fleet, but instead of attacking, they latched onto the hulls of the alien ships. Each drone contained a miniature quantum computer, networked with its brethren. Together, they'd formed a distributed AI more powerful than anything humanity had ever created. This superintelligence began to work at incredible speeds, probing the Zarnian computer systems, looking for weaknesses. Within seconds, it had found them. Across the Zarnian fleet, ships began to lose power. Weapons systems went offline. Life support flickered. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see or understand, an intelligence that moved through their systems like a ghost. On Earth, in the war room, Admiral Yamamoto watched the battle unfold with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "It's working," he breathed. "By God, it's actually working." But the Zarnians weren't defeated yet. Though caught off guard, they were still a technologically superior force with centuries of military experience. They began to adapt, their own AI systems working furiously to counter the human assault. Aboard the Zarnian command ship, General Alvarez and her team fought their way through alien corridors, facing fierce resistance. The Zarnian warriors were formidable, their exoskeletons making them far stronger than humans. But what the Earth soldiers lacked in strength, they made up for in determination and adaptability. "Push forward," Alvarez shouted, her powered armor sparking from a glancing hit. "We need to reach the central core." In space, the battle raged on. The Zarnians had realized the deception of the Phantom Fleet, but now faced a new problem. The hive swarms, having fulfilled their primary mission, had reconfigured into attack mode. They swarmed around the alien ships, their tiny but powerful lasers cutting through hull plating with surgical precision. Captain Chen, coordinating the assault from the Excalibur's bridge embedded deep within the Zarnian flagship, felt a surge of pride. Humanity was holding its own against a vastly superior force, their ingenuity and courage making up for what they lacked in technology and numbers. But she knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The element of surprise was fading, and the Zarnians were rallying. If they didn't achieve their primary objective soon, all would be lost. "General Alvarez," she called over the comm. "Status report." Alvarez's voice came back, breathless and punctuated by the sound of weapon fire. "We're close, Captain. But these bugs aren't making it easy. We've lost good people." Chen gritted her teeth. Every human life lost was a tragedy, but they all knew the stakes. "Keep pushing, General. The fate of our species depends on it." Back on Earth, cities had become battlegrounds. Some Zarnian ships, breaking formation, had begun orbital bombardments. But they found the humans far more prepared than expected. Energy shields, hastily constructed using reverse-engineered alien tech, flickered to life over major population centers. And from hidden bunkers emerged humanity's own mechs and combat vehicles, a blend of human and alien technology. They engaged the Zarnian ground forces with ferocious determination, turning city streets into war zones. In orbit, the tide of battle swung back and forth. The hive swarms had taken heavy losses, but they had also inflicted serious damage on the Zarnian fleet. Ships on both sides drifted powerless, their hulls breached and venting atmosphere. Aboard the Zarnian command ship, General Alvarez and her team finally broke through to the central core. It was a massive chamber, filled with pulsing crystalline structures that seemed to be the heart of the ship's systems. "This is it," Alvarez said, her voice filled with grim determination. She pulled a device from her armor. A quantum bomb, capable of unleashing destructive power on a scale humanity had never before wielded. But before she could activate it, A massive figure stepped out of the shadows. High Commander Vexlor, his exoskeleton bristling with weapons, faced the human soldiers. "You surprise me, humans," he said, his voice a low, menacing hum. "We thought you primitive, but you have fought with cunning and valor. It is almost a pity that we must exterminate you." Alvarez raised her weapon. Big words from someone about to lose their flagship. Vexlor's multifaceted eyes gleamed. "You think your little bomb will defeat us? We are the Zarnian Empire. We have ruled the stars for millennia. We cannot be defeated by upstart primitives. Watch us." Alvarez snarled and charged. The battle that ensued was epic, a clash between the pinnacle of Zarnian bioengineering and the best humanity had to offer. Alvarez's powered armor sparked and smoked as it absorbed hit after hit, but she gave as good as she got, her weapons finding weak points in Vexlor's exoskeleton. As they fought, Alvarez's team worked to plant the bomb, but Zarnian reinforcements were closing in. It seemed like they might be overwhelmed at the last moment. That's when Captain Chen's voice came over the comm. "General, we've got incoming. Brace for impact." The entire ship shuddered as the Excalibur, piloted remotely, rammed into another section of the Zarnian command vessel. The impact sent everyone sprawling, buying Alvarez's team the precious seconds they needed. "Bomb armed," one of her soldiers shouted. 2 minutes to detonation. Alvarez, battered and bleeding, staggered to her feet. Vexlor lay prone, his exoskeleton sparking. "It's over," she told him. "You lost the moment you underestimated humanity." As alarms blared and Zarnian crews rushed to evacuate, Alvarez and her team fought their way back to their entry point. They had less than a minute to get clear before the bomb went off. In the war room on Earth, Admiral Yamamoto watched the timer tick down, his heart in his throat. Everything hinged on this moment. 3, 2, 1. A blinding flash lit up the orbital battlefield as the Zarnian command ship erupted in a massive explosion. The quantum bomb had worked beyond their wildest expectations, the blast taking out not just the flagship but several nearby vessels as well. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in perfect silence. Then, gradually, a realization swept across the human forces. Against all odds, they had struck a devastating blow against the Zarnian Empire. Cheers erupted in the war room, in the bunkers, in the streets where humans fought. They had survived the first round. They had proven that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. But as the initial euphoria faded, a grim reality set in. This was only the beginning. They had bloodied the Zarnian Empire's nose, but the alien armada was vast. And now, they would be out for revenge. As rescue ships picked up Alvarez and her team, as the Excalibur limped back to Earth for repairs, as Hy-Vee swarms regrouped for the next assault, humanity steeled itself for what was to come. They had won the first battle. But the war for survival was far from over. The Zarnians now knew that humans didn't negotiate. They fought. And the galaxy would never be the same. Counterattack and resilience. The brief moment of triumph following the destruction of the Zarnian command ship was short-lived. As the debris of the alien flagship still smoldered in Earth's orbit, the full might of the Zarnian Empire descended upon humanity with a vengeance. Admiral Yamamoto stood in the war room, his face ashen as he watched the holographic display. Thousands of Zarnian warships poured out of FTL, their hulls gleaming with malevolent purpose. It was an armada that dwarfed anything humanity had faced in the initial assault. "My God," whispered President Kim, who had joined the military leadership for this crucial phase. "It's as if we've stirred up a hornet's nest." Yamamoto nodded grimly. "We knew this was coming. Now we see if our preparations were enough." Across the globe, humanity braced for impact. The brief respite had been used wisely. Defenses were shored up, weapons reloaded, and every scrap of alien technology salvaged from the previous battle was hastily reverse-engineered and put into production. In orbit, Captain Sarah Chen watched the approaching armada from the bridge of the newly repaired Excalibur. Her ship, now joined by a small fleet of similar vessels, hastily constructed using the plans they'd stolen, represented humanity's best hope for survival. All ships, battle formation Delta, Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the odds they faced. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Engage on my mark. As the Zarnian fleet entered weapons range, the space around Earth erupted into a maelstrom of energy weapons and explosions. The human ships, though outnumbered, fought with a ferocity that caught the aliens off guard. Excalibur-class vessels darted between the lumbering Zarnian warships, their advanced maneuverability allowing them to strike and fade before the aliens could respond. But the Zarnians had learned from their previous defeat. This time, they came prepared for human tricks. As Chen watched in horror, several of her ships were caught in powerful tractor beams, dragged in close where the aliens' superior firepower could tear them apart. Evasive maneuvers, she shouted. Don't let them pin you down. On the surface, the situation was equally dire. Zarnian dropships breached the atmosphere, disgorging waves of biomechanical soldiers into major cities around the globe. The streets of New York, Beijing, Lagos, and countless other metropolises became battlegrounds as human defenders clashed with the alien invaders. In the skyscrapers of Shanghai, a squad of Chinese soldiers, led by Lieutenant Wei Zong, found themselves cornered by a group of Zarnian shock troops. The aliens' exoskeletons made them nearly impervious to conventional weapons, their insectoid faces impassive as they advanced on the humans. "We're out of ammo," one of Zhang's men shouted, panic edging into his voice. Zhang gritted his teeth, his mind racing. Then his eyes fell on a nearby construction site. "Follow me," he ordered. Leading his squad through a hail of alien fire, Zhang reached the site and grabbed a welding torch. As the Zarnians rounded the corner, he ignited it, the flame burning with incredible heat. "Aim for the joints in their armor," he yelled. The improvised weapons worked better than they could have hoped. The intense heat melted through the weak points in the Zarnian exoskeletons, sending the aliens into panic. Within minutes, the tide of the skirmish had turned. Similar scenes played out across the globe as humans used their ingenuity and knowledge of their home turf to counter the aliens' technological superiority. In the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, residents used narrow alleyways and makeshift traps to ambush Zarnian patrols. In the suburbs of London, a group of school children reprogrammed toy drones to interfere with alien communications. But despite these small victories, the overall situation remained grim. The Zarnians' numbers seemed endless, their resolve unshakable. For every alien ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. For every invader repelled on the ground, a dozen more landed. In Moscow, Dr. Svetlana Petrova worked feverishly in an underground lab, surrounded by a team of the world's brightest scientists. They had been tasked with humanity's last, best hope, a weapon that could turn the tide of the war. "We're close," Petrova muttered, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "The quantum entanglement matrix is stable. If we can just solve the power distribution problem." Her words were cut off by a massive explosion that rocked the facility. Dust rained from the ceiling as warning klaxons blared. "They found us," one of her colleagues said, fear evident in his voice. Petrova's eyes hardened with determination. "Then we'd better finish this quickly." As Zarnian forces bore down on the lab, Petrova and her team worked with desperate speed. The sounds of battle grew closer with each passing minute. Just as the doors to the lab began to glow red from alien weaponry, Petrova let out a cry of triumph. "It's done." The device they had created was small, no larger than a briefcase, but within it lay the potential to change the course of the war. As Zarnian soldiers burst into the lab, Petrova activated the device. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, suddenly, every piece of Zarnian technology in the room, weapons, armor, communication devices, simply shut down. The aliens, caught off guard, were quickly overwhelmed by the human security forces that had been defending the lab. As the dust settled, Petrova allowed herself a small smile. "Get this to Admiral Yamamoto," she told a nearby soldier. Quickly. In orbit, the battle had turned desperate. The Excalibur and its sister ships fought valiantly, but they were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Captain Chen watched with a heavy heart as another human vessel erupted into a ball of fire. "Captain," her tactical officer called out, "we're detecting a massive energy buildup from the planet's surface." Chen's eyes widened as she saw what was happening. A beam of pure energy, more powerful than anything she had ever seen, shot up from Earth. It struck the lead Zarnian battleship, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, to Chen's amazement, the massive ship began to power down, its lights flickering and dying. The beam swept across the Zarnian fleet, leaving dead ships in its wake. Vessels that had been untouchable juggernauts moments before now drifted helplessly in space. "What just happened?" Chen breathed. The answer came from Admiral Yamamoto himself, his hologram appearing on the Excalibur's bridge. "Captain Chen, meet humanity's saving grace. The Petrova device. It generates a field that disrupts any technology more advanced than our own. The Zarnians' greatest strength has just become their greatest weakness." As understanding dawned, a fierce grin spread across Chen's face. "All ships," she commanded, "target the depowered Zarnian vessels. Show them no mercy." The tables turned dramatically. Human ships, their less advanced technology unaffected by the Petrova device, tore through the now defenseless Zarnian fleet. On the ground, alien invaders found themselves suddenly vulnerable, their advanced weapons and armor nothing more than dead weight. The Zarnians, faced with a situation they had never encountered in their long history of galactic dominance, fell into disarray. Their rigid hierarchy, usually a strength, became a weakness as lower-ranked soldiers found themselves unable to act without orders from superiors who could no longer communicate. Humanity, on the other hand, demonstrated the adaptability that had allowed them to survive countless challenges throughout their history. They quickly organized to take advantage of their sudden upper hand, coordinating global counterattacks with a speed that left the Zarnians reeling. In New Delhi, a group of Indian soldiers led a charge to reclaim the city center, their outdated but functional rifles easily overwhelming the now powerless Zarnian exoskeletons. In the ruins of Sydney, Australian special forces used their knowledge of the terrain to ambush and capture entire squads of confused alien troops. As the hours passed, the tide of the battle shifted decisively. Zarnian ships fell from the sky, their anti-gravity systems offline. Those that managed to land intact were quickly surrounded and captured. On every continent, in every city, humans emerged from hiding to reclaim their world. Admiral Yamamoto watched the holographic display in the war room, tears of joy and relief streaming down his face. President Kim placed a hand on his shoulder, his own expression a mix of disbelief and cautious optimism. "Is it over?" Kim asked softly. Yamamoto shook his head. "Not yet, but for the first time since this war began, I believe we might actually win this." As the battle raged on, now decisively in humanity's favor, news of Earth's resurgence spread across the stars. In distant parts of the Zarnian Empire, subjugated species watched in awe as humans did what none had dared to do before, stand up to their oppressors and win. Seeds of rebellion, long dormant, began to sprout. The galaxy watched and waited, sensing that a new era was dawning. Humanity had not only survived, but was on the verge of changing the cosmic order forever. But even as victory seemed within grasp, challenges remained. The Zarnian Empire was vast, with resources beyond imagining. This was a serious blow, but not a knockout punch. And somewhere out there, the Zarnian Emperor was undoubtedly planning his response. The war wasn't over, but humanity had proven beyond all doubt that they were a force to be reckoned with. They had stared extinction in the face, and not only survived, but thrived. Whatever came next, the galaxy would never be the same. As the fires of battle began to die down, as the first Zarnian surrender was broadcast across the globe, humanity allowed itself a moment of celebration. They had faced the ultimate test and emerged stronger. United as never before, they looked to the stars not with fear, but with determination. The Zarnian Empire had sought to subjugate humanity. Instead, they had unleashed a force that would reshape the galaxy. The human era of galactic history had begun. Final showdown and aftermath. The galaxy held its breath as news of humanity's improbable victory spread like wildfire across the stars. On countless worlds, species that had long suffered under Zarnian rule watched in awe as the unthinkable became reality. The invincible empire had been bloodied, its arrogance shattered by a species it had dismissed as primitive. But the war was far from over. Deep in the heart of Zarnian space, on the throne world of Zarnia Prime, Emperor Vexalter raged. The ancient alien's multifaceted eyes glowed with a fury that sent his attendants scurrying for cover. "Impossible," he roared, his voice echoing through the cavernous throne room. "These humans dare to challenge the natural order of the galaxy. They will pay for their insolence." With a gesture, he summoned his war council. The most brilliant military minds in the Empire gathered, their exoskeletons gleaming in the ethereal light of the Imperial Palace. "Prepare the Worldbreaker," Vexalter commanded. "If these humans will not submit, then we will make an example of their world so terrible that no species will ever again dare to resist us." Across the gulf of space, on a Earth still reeling from the aftermath of invasion, humanity prepared for the final confrontation. They knew the Zarnians would return, and this time, there would be no holding back. In a secret facility beneath the ruins of Geneva, Captain Sarah Chen stood before a gathering of Earth's leaders. Her uniform was scorched and torn, a testament to the brutal battles she had fought. But her eyes burned with an unquenchable determination. "The Petrova device gave us an edge," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "But the Zarnians won't fall for the same trick twice. We need something more." Dr. Elias Mbeki stepped forward, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by grim resolve. "We've been studying the Zarnian technology we captured. There's something unusual about it. It's as if they're only using a fraction of its potential." President Kim leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What are you saying, Doctor?" Mbeki's eyes gleamed with excitement despite the tension. "Their entire civilization is built on technology they don't fully understand. It's like they found an interstellar library and learned just enough to use the books as blunt weapons. But we're reading between the lines." Admiral Yamamoto nodded slowly. "You think we can use their own technology against them? Better than they can." "I'm saying," Mbeki replied, "that with what we've learned, we might be able to rewrite the laws of physics as we know them." The room erupted into murmurs of excitement and disbelief. Chen raised her hand, silencing the crowd. "What do you need to make this happen?" Mbeki grimaced. "Time. And a direct connection to the Zarnian Central Network." Chen's face hardened with resolve. "Then that's what we'll get you. Whatever it takes." As Earth prepared for the final battle, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The Zarnian Worldbreaker, a ship the size of a small moon, emerged from FTL on the edge of the solar system. Its very presence warped spacetime, a testament to the incomprehensible energies it commanded. Humanity's fleet, a patchwork armada of reverse-engineered alien tech and desperate innovation, moved to intercept. The Excalibur, now joined by dozens of sister ships, led the charge. "All ships, battle formation Omega." Chen's voice crackled across the comm. "Remember, we just need to buy time. Every second we hold them off is another second for Mbeki and his team to work their magic." The space between Earth and Mars erupted into a light show that outshone the sun. Human ships darted and weaved between lumbering Zarnian cruisers, their unorthodox tactics confounding the aliens' millennia of military doctrine. But the Worldbreaker pressed on, shrugging off attacks that would have vaporized lesser ships. Its central weapon, a gravitational lance capable of tearing a planet apart, began to power up. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Himalayas, Mbiki and his team worked feverishly. Sweat beaded on the scientist's brow as his fingers flew across holographic interfaces, delving deep into the heart of Zarnian technology. "It's like a cosmic computer code," he muttered. "They've been running on legacy systems for millennia, never bothering to optimize. But if we can just—" A tremor shook the bunker. On the surface, the Worldbreaker's gravitational lance had grazed the moon, sending Sun-Emis racing across Earth's oceans. Time was running out. In orbit, the Excalibur shuddered under a barrage of Zarnian fire. Chen gripped her command chair, watching as ship after ship in her fleet winked out of existence. "We can't hold them much longer," her tactical officer shouted. Chen gritted her teeth. "We hold as long as we have to. For Earth." Just when all seemed lost, Mbiki's voice crackled over the global comm. "We've done it. Initiating the cosmic reboot now." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to hiccup. The Worldbreaker, poised to deliver the killing blow to Earth, suddenly flickered like a faulty hologram. Across the battlefield, Zarnian ships began to lose cohesion, their forms blurring and shifting. "What's happening?" Chen breathed, watching in awe as the mighty alien fleet began to disintegrate before her eyes. Mbiki's laughter, tinged with equal parts relief and disbelief, filled the channel. "We rewrote their base code. Turns out the Zarnians have been running the universe on outdated software. We just initiated the mother of all updates." As the human fleet watched in stunned silence, the Zarnian armada simply ceased to be. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia dissolved into streams of quantum data, reintegrating into the fabric of space-time itself. On Zarnia Prime, Emperor Vexalter felt his world literally shifting beneath his feet, as his empire crumbled around him, as the technology that had been the source of Zarnian superiority for eons turned against them. He finally understood. These humans hadn't just defeated them. They had transcended them. In the aftermath of what would come to be known as the Reality Revolution, the galaxy entered a new age. The Zarnian Empire, once the undisputed master of countless stars, found itself reduced to a single world. But rather than crush them, humanity extended a hand of peace. "We were like you once," Chen said, addressing the Zarnian Senate months after the war's end. "Afraid of the unknown, lashing out at anything we didn't understand. But there's a better way. Let us show you." Across the stars, species that had long suffered under Zarnian rule emerged into freedom. Many looked to Earth for leadership, but humanity was careful not to simply replace one empire with another. Instead, they proposed a galactic federation, where all species would have a voice. As ships bearing the flag of this new federation set out to explore the furthest reaches of the cosmos, humanity looked to the future with hope and determination. They had faced annihilation and emerged stronger than ever, united not just as a species, but as part of a greater galactic community. The Zarnians had fought to find easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant and filled it with terrible resolve. Humanity had proven that they didn't just negotiate. They fought, they innovated, and they emerged victorious against impossible odds. As the first human colonies were established on distant worlds, as Earth's children reached out to touch the stars, the galaxy watched in wonder. The era of Zarnian dominion was over. The age of humanity had begun. And somewhere in the vast tapestry of space and time, on a blue-green world circling an unremarkable yellow star, a child looked up at the night sky and dreamed of the adventures that awaited. For in this new galaxy, shaped by human determination and ingenuity, anything was possible. The Zarnian Empire had sought to extinguish humanity. Instead, they had ignited a flame that would light the cosmos for millennia to come.